If you have trim that's mounted too close to a device box or a device box that's mounted to a board, you're not going to be able to fit that device box cover on because it needs to go outside the boundaries of that device box. I've wired over 100 outlets, switches, and device boxes as a DIYer. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to trim a cover plate so it fits when it's in a tight spot. As you can see, I've mounted this 2-gang box to this piece of board as a junction box. I need to put a cover on it, but the cover won't fit because if I try to line up the holes, you'll notice that the cover plate needs to go outside of the device box. It won't fit. If I hit it up there, the holes don't line up. This can also happen when the trim is too close to a device box, trim from a window or a door or an opening. This can sometimes happen when you decide to change the trim and it's wider than the trim you originally had in that spot. So now it becomes tight to that device box. Now to make that cover plate fit, we're going to have to trim one side of the cover plate. So the best way is to measure from the screw hole because that's a spot that's going to be both on the cover as well as on the box. So you have to measure both the top and the bottom. So here I'm measuring and I have to the middle of the screw hole, I have 15/16 at the top, and at the bottom, I have the same 15/16 kind of in between that and the 1. It's not always going to be the same because the box isn't always the same, the wall isn't always the same. So always measure the top and the bottom. Now I can take those measurements and put them onto the cover plate and cut it. Before we start marking anything on the cover plate, I'm going to put a piece of tape on so that the line goes on the tape, not on the cover plate. So I'm going to measure my 15/16 over from the hole here and from here. Okay, so that's going to be my cut line because we measured that. Now I'm just going to use a straight edge and draw myself a line here. Okay, now there are different ways that you can cut this. You could use a hacksaw with a very fine-toothed blade. That works. I also have a flip saw that has a fine-toothed blade here. I use this for cutting plastic pipe. Something with a fine-toothed blade, or what you can use is a oscillating tool. This is what I'm going to use. It has a very fine-tooth multi-material blade. You don't have one of these, then one of the hand tools is going to work. And before we cut, what I'm going to suggest you do is you use a utility knife, like my Olfa knife here, and score along that line. The reason for that is because it is going to keep the saw on track when you're cutting if you have a score line there. And easiest to do it with your straight edge lined up on the line there. And then we're just going to score it all the way, make sure it doesn't move. Okay, so that's going to be helpful sometimes when you want the blade to guide along there. Now, to cut it, we're going to want to clamp it, but you can notice it has this curve in the cover plate, and so if I were to clamp it hard, it's going to break the cover plate. So I just grabbed a scrap piece of 1/2-inch plywood here, and I'm going to put that in between the cover plate and my workbench here, and you'll notice that it fits quite nicely in between there, and you want to make sure that you align it so that it's not going to get cut on the line. So I'm going to line it up there, and I'm going to use my trigger clamp to clamp this down. Okay, so now I've got it held well, so when I go ahead and cut it, it's not going to move when I'm cutting it. So again, a couple ways to do it. I'm going to show you this particular flip saw here, which I've done a video on before. So get it on the cut line and it will cut this plastic. And you want a fine tooth blade, and you want to be very careful about going along that line. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the oscillating tool, which will cut this a lot quicker. And so I'll start from this side. Yeah, saw it started to move there, so I want to make sure that my clamp is tight and not breaking the cover plate. If that's going to be too difficult, then what you're going to have to do is to just hold it by hand and cut it that way. So my workbench isn't holding it very well, so I'm going to just hold it by hand carefully and use the oscillating tool. Okay, so now the cover plate has been cut at the line that I need it to be. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some sandpaper and hand sander and just clean that up, make it nice and smooth. I'm using a hand sanding block here, not a power sander. A power sander is going to take off too much material. It's too aggressive. I'm just trying to smooth it out, make it look good where it's going to be installed. So again, I'm not trying to take off a lot of material. Okay, now I've sanded it nice and smooth, and I can go and test fit to make sure that it is going to go on. If I need to, I can come back, sand a little more if it's a little too big. If not, then I can go and install it. So I've come back inside, got my cover plate, and it fits exactly where I need it to be. So now I can go ahead and beat the screws in one by one and attach this cover plate where it needs to be. And it has fit this tight area where I had to trim the cover plate. Here's my cover plate all installed and labeled like I label all of the cover plates on my junction boxes, so I know what circuits are inside. I'll link to the videos I've done on wiring and installing junction boxes in the description down below. And there in the description below, I'll also put links to all the tools and supplies that I used in this video. If you're interested in more DIY electrical projects that you can do in your home, here are some videos I think you'll find helpful. Thanks for watching.